Making the case, does the Justice Department have enough to indict George Zimmerman? Sabotage as a strategy? Is this the future of the Republican Party? And battle over abortion. State legislatures keeping the heat on new restrictions. Those are today's topics for our agenda panel. Taegan Goddard is the editor of Political Wire. Kate Shepard is a reporter for Mother Jones. And Corey Dade is a contributing editor for The Root. Good to see all of you. Corey, let me start with you. You've got this article up today on The Root saying it could be very hard for the Justice Department to bring charges. Here's a quote from the article. If the state of Florida's prosecution of George Zimmerman was an uphill battle, any Department of Justice effort to prove that he violated Trayvon Martin's civil rights would face the legal equivalent of Mount Everest. Why?
Well, Craig, proving a federal civil rights crime is one of the most difficult things for any prosecutor to do. It requires the federal government to meet the highest rules, the most strict rules of evidence, but also the highest standards of proof in American law. Specifically, they have to prove that George Zimmerman had racist thoughts in mind at the moment, either leading up to the shooting or right when he pulled the trigger. It's not enough to establish that he may have racially profiled Trayvon Martin. It's not enough to establish that he followed Trayvon Martin. They have to prove that he was harboring racial thoughts, that he was motivated by racial bias when he pulled that trigger. And really, these kinds of cases are only brought by the Justice Department when they have the slam dunk, and this is anything but.
And taking politically here, let's talk about that, because last week Attorney General Eric Holder said that the Justice Department does share the concerns of people who are outraged over the verdict. But what would happen if the Justice Department took this on and then failed?
You know, that's really a great question, because when President Obama made his surprise appearance in the White House briefing room last week, the one thing that came out of that, which was interesting, was that he made a rather personal but an eloquent case about why stand your ground laws may actually lead to these types of conflicts. And it's the one of these types of things where rarely in politics do you see a politician with a few sentences be able to change people's minds. But just in the last few days, I've seen several people now change their position on the stand your ground laws. And I think that President Obama could actually make that case and challenge some of these laws, and that could be the direction that the administration heads on these cases.
Let's pivot here and talk about this article that you pointed us toward today, this article on GOP obstructionism. It's from Jonathan Chait in New York Magazine. It's titled Anarchists of the House. It says in part, quote, the terms that we traditionally use to scold bad Congresses, partisanship, obstruction, gridlock, don't come close to describing this situation. Is what's going on here the result of leadership absolutely losing control? Is it the result of gerrymandering? What exactly is happening here? Or perhaps a combination of several things?
I think it's a combination of several things, but you've seen the Republican Party move from obstructionism to outright sabotage now. You have a democratically passed law in President Obama's Health Care Reform Act, passed by the House, passed by the Senate, signed into law by the President, and now you have Speaker Boehner taking to the airwaves this weekend in an interview talking about how he will do anything possible procedurally to upend that law, to stop it from taking place. When you combine this with what happens in the U.S. Senate with filibusters on nearly everything, you see that the Republican Party really has moved from just obstruction to outright sabotage of the government.
This is what Speaker Boehner said yesterday. This is this is a response to a question about these seemingly pointless votes to repeal Obamacare. This was his response. Take a listen.
We should not be judged on how many new laws we create. We ought to be judged on how many laws that we repeal.
Kate, is that the clearly synthesized mantra for the modern GOP?
I mean, it sure seems like it. They really haven't focused very much on getting new things done. It's just about blocking and making partisan statements about laws that already exist. And that's clearly what they've been focusing on for years. This isn't exactly new.
One of the, Corey, one of the phrases that jumped out at me from the article, this idea of procedural extremism.
Right. Yeah. You know, procedural extremism, it is just sort of an outgrowth of all the issues that they've been dealing with, an outgrowth of their strategy until now. This is all about the midterm elections for next year. They're digging in, trying to appeal to their base. The problem is, once they have a standard bearer who's going to be running for that nomination for their party and gets it, This holds that nominee back. They cannot win national elections this way.
Kate, I want to turn to the abortion debate again now. Last week, of course, Texas became the 12th state to ban most abortions. After 20 weeks, just hours after that, 2 Republican state reps introduced a bill that would restrict abortion at the sound of a fetal heartbeat, which I understand can come in about 6 weeks. What's the motivation here? Why are they doing this?
Well, as if it weren't clear enough with the laws that already passed, you know, they've rolled it back to 20 weeks. They've passed building restrictions that will close almost all of the abortion clinics in the state. They've outlawed the use of medication abortion almost entirely in the state. I mean, they've put it up this front that it's about women's health and just, you know, keeping women safe. But really, you know, I think this new law really reveals that it's just about eliminating access to abortion at any cost. You know, as you mentioned, 6 weeks, most women don't even know they're pregnant at that point in time if it's an unplanned pregnancy. And so really this is essentially to outlaw all abortion all the time.
What about galvanizing the opposition? I mean, you would think that the folks who are behind some of these repeals, some of these restrictions would also understand that you could end up, you know, this could become an issue that costs you votes at the polls, no?
You know, I think you're right. I think it could cost votes to the polls, but there's a larger agenda here in the anti-abortion movement, and that's about challenging Roe v. Wade at the national level. That's why we've seen these 12 different 20-week bans. That's why we've seen this now, a second attempt at a 6-week ban. North Dakota already has one in place that's being challenged in court right now. But they want to see another abortion case before the Supreme Court in order to roll back access across the country. And so it's not just about Texas. It's about creating a bigger statement about access to abortion.
All right. Kate Shepard, we'll leave it there. Kate Shepard, Taegan Goddard, Corey Day, our agenda panel. Thank you so much. And folks, you can find more from our panel on our website. It's tv.msnbc.com. All you have to do is follow the link to Thomas's name. The wave of grassroots activism being called